generations to come.
Welcome to this week's TDN Writers Room podcast. My name is Bill Finley. I'm a correspondent for the Thoroughbred Daily News.
How are y'all doing? I'm Randy Moss with NBC Sports and the Buyer Speed Figure team. Hope everybody's well.
Very well indeed. Zoe Cadman here with First Racing and First TV. I'm in England. The heat wave is over, obviously, because my grey hair seems to be blending into the grey sky right now. But it is warm and it's a glorious time to be in England.
I bet with Royal Ascot just getting done, and must be fun time to be in England, no doubt about it. Well, guys, the biggest story of the week is, an extremely sad one. We're doing this on Wednesday, and it will appear on Thursday. So keep that in mind when you're talking about the chronology of our reporting here. But what we know right now is Wayne Lukas is very sick. He's so sick that he has retired from training. That in and of itself tells you how bad this must be. I thought this guy would be doing this till he was 105 years old, and there was nothing in the world that could get him to step down, get off that pony in the morning, and go off into retirement or do something else. But and now it's time to just have memories of him. And the word great gets thrown around much too easily, or the greatest of all time, almost to the point where it's a cliche. Not with Wayne Lukas. He was a great trainer, and I would argue that he was the greatest trainer of all time for many reasons, one of which he revolutionized the sport. We talk about these super trainers now. Before Lukas came around, there was no such thing. He was the first guy to have multiple divisions. He put horses on planes. If he thought the horse could win the Ohio Derby, he'd run him in the Ohio Derby. He wasn't afraid to do anything, and he laid the groundwork for the trainers that have come after him, including his protege, Todd Pletcher.
He was a great university. If you just think of the people that have come out of the school of Wayne, Mark Hennig, most notably Todd Pletcher, Dallas Stewart, his son as well. Just amazing. The first time I ever had anything to do with Wayne, I'd kind of heard of the name Wayne Lukas. I didn't come over to the States until 1994. And I was working for Michael Dickinson, and we were running the Hoss at Hollywood Park. So I was taking him down to school, and I remember leading him down. And the Hoss was a bit of a dick. He would drag me all over the place. I didn't even know what a lip chain was then. So I'm getting drugged down, and he drags me almost through this white shed row with a white picket fence and all this green and white. And he's dragging me, and he heads straight for the grass, which was, you didn't touch that grass at Wayne's barn. So I go down there. I'm like, what's going on? One of his grooms came out and put a lip chain on him and showed me, how to lead him properly. And I just imagine looking at this pristine shed row in awe. And I was like, whose shed row is that? They're like, D. Wayne Lukas. I'm like, does he not have a first name? What's the D for? I had no clue who this guy was. So we run the Hoss in the swaps, and of course Wayne wins it. And I just remembered seeing this guy with the massive sunglasses on, the white bridles, and was just like, wow, this is real America. And I was just in awe. And he won it. The Hoss was second to Thunder Gulch that day. And it was just astounding to see something coming from England. And things were regimented. I worked for Sir Mark Prescott over there, but I'd never seen anything like D. Wayne Lukas. And then as the years progressed, we saw more of D. Wayne Lukas. In fact, one summer, I got to work for him at Saratoga, and this is when Dallas Stewart was working for him. We're on the Oklahoma training track, and Wayne liked his horses. You had to ride short and let them roll around there. So I was rolling this horse around the training track one morning, and I get to Wayne, who was stood at the 3/8 pole, and he's waving me on like this. Go faster, go faster. I get to Dallas, who was standing up by the 7/8 pole, and he'd be slowing me down. Every time I went around, Wayne would be waving me on, and Dallas would be slowing me down. And to this day, he's just a remarkable human being. And his loss will be a great loss to the sport of horse racing. He's done so much. Bringing the kids into the winner's circle. He's been a true advocate for horse racing, even right up to now. So just wishing him and Laurie, his wife, and his whole family, just wishing them my best, to be honest.
He's been around for so long. He's been so resilient. He's made so many comebacks. I mean, reading the reports, unfortunately, I guess it's not going to happen this time, but it's almost like you wouldn't be surprised at all, if a month later the headlines are, hey, Wayne has beaten the illness and he's making another comeback and he'll be back at the barn and back on his pony. It's just been an unbelievable run for Wayne in so many different ways. I mean, Bill, you mentioned how he revolutionized the sport. I mean, Jack Vanberg had multiple divisions around the country back in the late 70s and early 80s and was all the time flying around on his airplane. But Wayne would target individual major stakes races and fly horses around the country. I think he was the first trainer to really treat the profession like he was the CEO of a major corporation. And then, of course, there's the incredible organization and the hyper positivity that Wayne always had about everything, and just the most unbelievable ambassador for the sport that there ever has been. Anytime anybody needed a comment about a key issue that was going on in thoroughbred racing, Wayne was always right there front and center, and he always had something really interesting to say. We just hung out with him. I mean, I covered him in the media for 45 years, really, since 1980. And we were just hanging around him at Pimlico and marveling at how sharp he was and how he was still getting on his pony in the morning. And Jerry Bailey and I did a sit-down interview with him and Bob Baffert, and Wayne just as sharp as ever. And I guess he still is. But you learned something new almost every time you talk to Wayne. I mean, just at Pimlico, he was telling us about how he wrote poetry. And apparently he's really good at it. And he was quoting some of his poetry. And we're standing there like, really? Wayne Lukas writes poetry? And then he tells me, we're just kind of, shooting the you-know-what. And I don't know how this topic came up, right? As a younger man, Wayne dated Angie Dickinson and Olivia Newton-John.
Oh my goodness.
Who the hell knew that? And he was telling me about how, he went out on a date with Olivia Newton-John, and this was, at the peak of Olivia Newton-John, right? And she invited him back to her house at Malibu to take a romantic walk on the beach, nighttime walk on the beach with her dog. And Wayne said no, because he had to get up and be at the barn at 4:30 in the morning. I'm like, Wayne, we've all made bad decisions in life. This might be your number one bad decision that you made, not going back home with Olivia Newton-John.
Oh my God, that is amazing.
So many Wayne Lukas stories, and just, thoughts and prayers with the Lukas family. And it's a big one. We'll see.
He's had 9 lives. He's been counted out so many times. And there was a period, let's see, I would say from, I actually wrote this, so I should know the statistics, but I believe in 2020 to 2023, something like that, he didn't win a single stakes race. And, his whole image had changed. He went from being this powerhouse trainer to just a beloved avuncular figure in horse racing. But if you would have told me at that point that he would still come back and win a Triple Crown race with Seize the Gray, he would win the Kentucky Oaks with Secret Oath, I would have said, no way. I mean, nobody's sending this guy any horses. And I believe this latter period of his career, if you can get back in there, Randy, and ask him these questions and get some stories told him, he seemed happier. That he really enjoyed this role. Sure, he would like to win 400 races a year like Brad Cox, but he wasn't going to do that at his age. There was no pressure. He was beloved by everybody in the industry. He was still winning major races, and he did. He seemed different. He was just. He wasn't all hyper. He was calm. He was always smiling, and I think it's good for him that at that late in life he was still a very productive horse trainer.
And you just imagine that this was a guy who's in the Quarter Horse Hall of Fame. He didn't switch over to thoroughbreds. I read somewhere he was 42 when he won his first thoroughbred race. Equibase says that he actually ran horses in 1974 and then took a break for a couple of years to 77, where he won his first race at Santa Anita at age 42. Now, you look at the likes of Brad Cox and what they've done already at about the same age. Imagine if Wayne had started off with the Thoroughbreds in his 20s, in his 30s. I mean, he would have set every record nobody would have ever broken. He's just been amazing. Almost 5,000 wins to his credit, 26 Eclipse Award champions. Just a true amazing man. One more story, his lovely wife, Laurie. When they first started dating, Wayne, tried to make her go out with him. And I remember having this conversation with her a few years ago. She's like, I don't want anything to do with him. He's this big time horse trainer. She's like, just leave me alone. She finally went on a date with him and they hit it off and everything was all hunky dory. I can't remember what year it was, but it was at Churchill Downs on Derby Day. And she was trying to get into the paddock. It was probably 10 years ago because I was working for HRTV and they wouldn't let her into the paddock. And she was like, I'm with Wayne Lukas. And the guy looked her up and down and he's like, oh yeah, okay, lady. Because they were so used to Wayne having, younger ladies around him and Wayne would joke, I finally found one that's closer to my age and it's awesome. And then she just was rolling her eyes and I got her into the paddock, but they wouldn't let her into the paddock because they didn't believe her. We laughed about that for years. It was amazing.
So I have a Lukas story too about a personal story. 1995 Kentucky Derby. I had covered the Santa Anita Derby back when newspapers actually covered horse racing, leading up to the Santa Anita Derby. And Lukas had Timber Country among his starters in the 1995 Kentucky Derby. And I thought I don't want to go too much into it, but I hated Timber Country. I thought he had no chance. I thought he was going to be way up the track. And I'd like to you guys wouldn't even remember a horse by the name of Jumron, who ran back then. But you remember him, Randy? Okay.
I remember, yeah.
So I was telling him about Jumron. I said, Wayne, watch out for this horse. He's going to beat you. And he's, give me a break. And he was kind of, a little bit like, it was trained, Jumron was trained by kind of a real low key, nobody trainer. And not in a rude way, but he said, look, I'm not going to lose to that guy. It's just not going to happen. So he bet me $500 horse for horse who would win. Son of a bitch, Timber Country beat Jumron. They were third and fourth, beat Jumron by about a half a length. And it looked like I had him the whole way down the stretch. So a little old me, I have to come back to this barn the next day with my tail completely between my legs. The only way I was going to be able to pay him, I'm not going to walk around carrying $500, is I had to go to an ATM. So I took $500 out of the ATM, handed him a big wad of $20 bills. I think he might have enjoyed that more than any race that he ever won. And I'd hear about it. 10 years later, I'd hear about it. 20 years later, I'd hear about it. But, that was a fun aspect of him. And he got me. I should have known better.
So, Bill, you mentioned Timber Country. We all talk about records in every sport, records that'll never be broken. In horse racing, there's the 31-length Secretariat Belmont win in 224. There's Woody Stevens with 5 straight Belmonts. Well, Timber Country was right in the middle of the streak that Wayne had of 6 consecutive Triple Crown race victories. Tabasco Cat in the Preakness and the Belmont. The next year, this would be 1995, Thunder Gulch wins the Derby, Timber Country, the Preakness. Thunder Gulch comes back to take the Belmont Stakes, right? That's 5 in a row. And then Grindstone in 1996 wins the Kentucky Derby. That's a record, I think, that'll never be broken.
Well, as Randy pointed out, there were so many different aspects to this man's life and his career, more so than just a horse trainer. And I didn't know this until people had started talking about it. And Randy just mentioned it on the podcast, that he was a very good poet. Now, I'm not one to be able to judge poetry that well, but here's one he wrote, and I know he was giving it to people and talking about it around Preakness time. So this isn't that long ago. It's called Out of Time. As I woke up today with a troubled and uneasy mind, only to realize in this wonderful life I was running out of time. I am a poet with a verse that would not rhyme, or a simple dancer a step and a half behind. I thought of all the ups and downs in a life so very real and strong, knowing God has blessed me in every way as I struggle and work to move along. So today I will love each and every one as if they were truly mine, as I realize and know I'm running out of time.
Do want to remind you that the TDN Writers Room is brought to you by Keeneland. Vava was the 280,000 graduate of the 2021 Keeneland September sale, and she pushed her earnings to just under $2 million with a win in last Saturday's Grade 2 Chicago Stakes at Churchill Downs. That was her 5th graded stakes win, including last year's Grade 1 Derby City Distaff. This year's Keeneland September sale runs from September the 8th through September the 20th.
It all comes down to this.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
The moment that defines the year, when the world's most influential buyers gather, and every decision, every bid, every opportunity shapes the future. At a marketplace that brings the thoroughbred world together, and where futures are forged, because every moment matters. At the World's Yearling Sale, Keeneland, September.
This week's fastest source of the week brought to you by Nashville, one of the fast sires at WinStar Farm, the 6-furlong track record holder at Keeneland, 107.89, almost a full second faster than the Breeders' Cup Sprint held later that same day. Well, now as a stallion, Nashville bred 368 mares in his first 2 books, and 10 of his first yearlings will be on offer at the upcoming Fasig-Tipton July yearling sale, July the 8th. Now, the fastest source of the week, so we just talked about her, Vava. Just trot Vava out at any 6.5 or 7 furlong race at Churchill Downs and stand back and watch the fireworks. And she did it again in the Chicago Stakes. She is now 5 for 6 lifetime at Churchill Downs. She rebounded from a couple of disappointing efforts in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint and also in the Derby City Distaff in the slop at Churchill Downs. But she did it in a big way last Saturday, winning the Chicago with a buyer's speed figure of 97. Vava, our fastest horse of the week.
Welcome in now the Gainesway guest of the week. It's trainer Kenny McPeek, who's going to have a very busy weekend. His 2 stable stars, Thorpedo Anna and Mystik Dan, in the entries at Churchill Downs on Saturday. But Kenny, before we get to that, being the hard-hitting journalist that I am, I hate to do this, but I got to ask you this question. The tattoo, WTF?
Oh, look at that.
All right, so what? Did you get real drunk one night or what?
No, I have always said that if I ever won the Derby, that would be the tattoo I would get. Sherry went to a charity auction, one of the aftercare auctions, and someone had offered up a tattoo session, and she bought it at a charity auction. And then I've been sitting on it for a while, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. But, it's something I'm very proud of. If you're going to get a tattoo, make it work. Make it something that you accomplished. I mean, not something just arbitrary, I decided to do it. And then I started communicating with the tattoo artist, and she was great. And we kind of put some ideas together. And then I actually wanted something, let's just say medium size. I didn't want to go too far over, but she kept saying, you have a big arm, you're a man, you need a big tattoo. I said, let's see what you got. And we tinkered back and forth with it. And honestly, I love it. I love it. It's freaking awesome. And, that's just something, look, I'm no spring chicken anymore. I'm 62. It's too close to 80, if you ask me. So if you're going to do something in life, you might as well, go big or go home. And I've got 99.9% positives. And I've had a few people say, how could you do that to yourself? I did it, whatever.
Well, hope you feel the same way about it 5 years from now. I don't know from experience, but I hear if you change your mind about that, it's very painful to try to get that off.
I'm definitely not going to change my mind. And I think she did a wonderful job on it. It's actually beautiful. And it hurt. I mean, for those that have had tattoos, I have a deep respect now for those that have got full body tattoos and things. It hurts. I mean, when I say that, you have to grit and bear it there. And, like she said, oh, you'll get used to the pain. And kind of did. I actually stayed on the phone and kept myself busy. You have to prop your arm up into a little sling, and it's actually a nice little setup. And I just tried to keep my mind off what she was doing and let her do her work. And I've got so many comments. I can't comprehend how much attention it's gotten. Actually shocked at the amount of attention it's gotten. And my 9-year-old daughter sat through it, watched it, right? And that's actually probably a bad idea for most parents out there. Don't allow your students or your children to watch. So now she wants one. I said, no, absolutely not. You have to accomplish something in your life prior to, it has to be something of significance. And she says, well, how old do I have to be? I said, 30. She said, what about 18? So we shall see.
So I can just imagine what might have been. How many times did you have to remind the tattoo artist that Mystik is spelled with a K and not a C?
Well, she actually, the first prints, she actually spelled Thorpedo wrong and Mystik wrong.
Oh, wow.
And so, but she didn't ink it on me. She just did there's a little, what they call it, I don't know what you call it, but you have a little ink thing that you put on there as a test and gives her the outlines. And no, we didn't put the wrong names on there. Thank God. No regrets. As in no regrets. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Chloe, Zoe gets it. Yeah.
I got it. That was a good movie. That was a very good. Well, I'm proud of you, Kenny, because I have several, and you're right. It's kind of a painful experience. So
You'll have to show them to me sometime.
Oh, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Yeah, I can see a few more in your future. You might have to start lifting some weights, though, Popeye. I mean, you got to have some guns to show those off.
I've always worked out. Are you kidding me?
All right. Well, proof is in
that happiness I carry around. I'm good.
So both the horses that are on your arm are running at Churchill Downs on Saturday. Just a nice little generic softball question. How are they doing?
Well, I mean, superb. It's been a real honor to be around two horses of such talent level, and they've remained consistent. And, obviously, these are, her race is hers for the taking if she'll go back to her previous form, and I expect her to. And his race is a tough race. I mean, it probably is the race of the year. I don't know what your all's opinion is of that, but I mean, that is really deep water. The horse that comes out of that victorious is going to be, I would assume, the early favorite for the Classic, and they've all got their work cut out for him. And I think my horse is going into Mystik Dan has just been fantastic for the last month, and we. Going into it, we feel like we've got a huge chance.
What about Thorpedo Anna's last race? I know you've been over her with a fine-tooth comb and you can't find anything. Is that just a complete toss?
Well, I think she got the breath knocked out of her in that first turn, all the bumping. Actually, Johnny Velasquez probably was the most informative about it all. I asked him his take on it. He said, Kenny, he said when Rosario came over on us, Rosario knocked Thorpedo Anna into, I believe it was Darth Vader, and then Darth Vader hit the rail, and then when she hit the rail, her hind end came back over and hit broadsided Anna again. That's pretty extreme. I mean, I don't understand why stewards don't do something about that. That's, it was just for me, that's the only way they were going to beat her, and they did it. So congrats. I don't know what Rosario was thinking or if he was told to do that, but that was just a rough day at the office. And, and since then she's done everything like you'd ask her to. And, unless for whatever reason, if she does that performance this weekend, I'll be shocked. But, look, it's horse racing. It's a very humbling business. So we will, right now she's done everything right, like she's always done. And, I hate for one race for people to forget about her. It seems like they have, but I hope not.
Not me. I'm going to the bank, especially after talking to you.
Good.
So you've always been a hyper positive kind of guy. When Mystik Dan ran in the Pegasus World Cup and ran so poorly, it had to be difficult not to be pretty discouraged at that point, and maybe lose a little confidence or whatever. Then he bounces back and wins at Oaklawn and wins the blame. I mean, how gratifying has it been to see him back to his peak form?
Well, I think we got too ambitious, or I'll take the bullet on that. We got too ambitious coming out of the Triple Crown. We thought that the Malibu was a good spot. It didn't look like it was that tough a race. We actually wanted to showcase him sprinting a little bit as a sire, to attract people to him as a stallion. It completely backfired. The trip out there was a mistake on my part. I should have skipped the race. We trucked him out. We thought we could logistically pull it off. It didn't work. I mean, that's not on the horse. That's on me. And that's on, the team, I suppose. And then the trip to California, once again, I think we were too ambitious. We really needed to step ladder him. And, look, training horses is so inexact, and it's never black or white. It's always gray. And in hindsight, you're a genius. But fortunately, I had a wonderful client. He said, do what you think's right. Dr. Bramlage has looked over him, said, look, horse is really, fine. Just reset. We reset. And I think we're getting rewarded for it. If we were to win the Stephen Foster this weekend, I think it's a testament to the team, and just really glad to have him back, where he was and back on his game.
So let's suppose that in 2026, you're fortunate enough to get a clone of Mystik Dan and you win the Kentucky Derby again in 2026. Is there anything you might do differently?
Well, I think you've got to take it horse by horse, but you really can't look backwards. I mean, he runs second in the Preakness. Okay, you're back in 2 weeks. He ran flat in the Belmont. That happens. That just tells you how tough a horse has to be to run in all three and to win all three, of course. But you don't look backwards too much. You learn from that. But every horse is different. I mean, I don't think you're ever going to get a clone of him. And in hindsight, we've done a lot right. So let's enjoy that.
Kenny, you've got a very busy weekend. You've got 10 horses in maiden races this weekend at Churchill. If my counting is correct, how many horses do you have at Churchill? Because 10 maidens, that's a lot, and that's a big future. Like you're amped up and you're ready to roll.
Well, we're pretty patient with our young horses. So our 2-year-olds are just now coming around. And then we've got a list of 3-year-olds that have come around, and horses that had things like a tibia and little issues, that nothing major, that just haven't made the races until now. And we do have a lot of depth. I mean, with everything that's happened in the last year, we've got a great depth of quality horses, and I think the stable is getting stronger, and I think you're going to see our second half be pretty significant. I think we're going on 50 wins in the first half already, and I've 49. Never done that before. I've never done well. If you count the Saudi Arabia race, the King's Cup, that was a nice win, but it doesn't record in the records. But I've got a great team of people right now, and I've been kind of slowly getting stronger, and our whole outfit's getting stronger, and it's a reflection of the clients, it's a reflection of the horses and the team.
So you mentioned Saudi Arabia and you mentioned your great team, which leads me to the Jimmy Jerkins question.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about the hiring of Jimmy as part of your team.
Well, I've known Jimmy for decades. I knew his father well. Obviously had world of respect for Jimmy. And, that was something that I tiptoed around a little bit, in the sense that, Jimmy's perfectly capable of doing his own thing at any time. But I think him coming back from Saudi Arabia, and I crossed paths with him in Saudi when I was over there, and we visited. And I asked him what he was going to do when he came back, and he wasn't sure. And then it kind of came into my head, boy, he'd be a great man that I didn't have to worry about a New York division. Of course, I would worry about it, but I don't have to micromanage anything, And so I said to him, look, I need a really good guy there. But if you're going to set up, look, fine. If you're not, if you want to maybe what I'd call collaborate, then let's talk about it. And we talked, and look, he's so talented. And, like any team, you're only as good as the people you've got in place. And I've always had a weakness in New York, and specifically in Long Island or Belmont, because I'm not a New York guy. I mean, I don't like being up in that area too much. I like shipping in, leaving. But if you're asking me to stay day to day, it's just not my world. Everybody knows I kind of bounce between Lexington and Louisville. I go south during the winter. I love Saratoga, but Belmont's not been. And so I said to Jimmy, I need somebody to hold the fort down there. And look, he's well paid, and we think like this, when we talk about horses, we think we speak the same language. I'm not going to force him to do anything with a horse he's not comfortable with. He's going to communicate back to me what he's dealing with. If a horse needs time, then they get time. We move some in, we move some out. We've got 8 more going to him tomorrow. I'm excited about it. Very excited.
Me too.
And it relieves me of having to head in there a lot. And I think that Jimmy's as good as any, full trainer there. It's like, it's just it really is. It's a strong team.
Kenny, you pulled off a pretty big upset recently in the Monomoy Girl Stakes. Immersive coming back. She looks like she's a cinch on paper, and you beat her with Take Charge Milady. Did you see that coming at all?
I did. That filly is a spitting image of Take Charge Lady for those that remember her. And that filly has had some foot issues over the winter that we dealt with. Actually, we had to really tiptoe into the Oaks because she had a little quarter crack that we were watching, and we were afraid it was going to open. And then she just didn't handle the mud in the Oaks. But her race in the Ashland was superb, and she had a really good winter at Oaklawn. And I think you're going to see this filly. I may skip the coaching club. I may wait for the Alabama and what I'd call fire her best shot, because I think she could win the Alabama if everything went right. So that's a filly I'm real excited about. She's gorgeous. I'm big on the pedigree line. She's by Take Charge Indy. Take Charge Indy's out of Take Charge Lady. And I believe that the way that the pedigrees or the genetics push, that she is her father's daughter, and her father is, Take Charge Lady. The line really shows up. And I do think Take Charge Indy will be a good broodmare sire because of Take Charge Lady. Look, when I go to an auction, that's what I look for. And I only gave $60,000 for it, so it's all gravy. And and I think she may get better as a year. She might end up in the distaff by fall if all goes right.
I've got one more question. We started off the show while talking about Wayne Lukas and his retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any favorite memories that you have of Wayne that you could just impart with us quickly?
I mean, so many it would take us hours. But when I first walked on the racetrack when I was young, I went to the Keeneland Track Kitchen, and I went up to Wayne's barn because that's who I wanted to work for. And he hadn't shipped in yet. And then I walked across the street and took a job for Shug McGahee as the hot walker. And I was green and young, and I think I was 21 or 22 at the time. And a couple of days later, Wayne shipped in, and he came in with a horse named Marfa, for those that remember Marfa. And I remember going over, and Wayne had Marfa out grazing. And I went over and said hello to him. And that was the first time I'd ever met him. and we talked for a while. And he said, "Why don't you come to work for me?" And I said, "Like that." And he says, "But I want you to go to Oklahoma for the winter." I said, "Oklahoma? Why Oklahoma?" And he says, "Well, we need help in Oklahoma." I was like, because he had a training center in Oklahoma at the time.
He had just spent a lot of money on that training center. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I did not go to Oklahoma. I stayed with Shug through the fall.
Yeah.
And then after the fall, I actually left the racetrack for a while and didn't come back until later the next year. So I did not go to Oklahoma, and I wished I had. And then over the years, though, Wayne has always been ultra friendly. I mean, I consider him somewhat of a father figure to me. Our Saratoga summers for decades has been, he and I are on the back line of the Oklahoma track, and I'm going to miss him because we had a lot of great conversations out there, just he and I, and for probably the past 15 plus years, it usually was just he and I. He would be on his pony, I'd be on the rail, and just a real special guy. I hope, I hope he's not suffering, and he's set the bar so high that many will never reach it.
Very good. Well, Kenny, thank you so much for your insights. Best of luck this weekend with your two big horses, Thorpedo Anna and Mystik Dan. And we'll catch up with you again soon.
All right. Thanks for having me, gang.
Cheers, Kenny.
Thanks,
All
Kenny.
right. See ya.
Save room on that other arm. You still got more good horses coming up.
That's it. That's English Derby.
Oh, there you go. I'll hold you to that. I'll hold you to that.
You watch me. You
All
watch
right.
me.
Got it.
Our guest of the week, Ken McPeek, brought to you by Gainesway, home of Tappet. And now for a couple of quick Tappet stats for you. And in case you might have forgotten how dominant of a sire Tappet has been and continues to be, he's the number one active lifetime sire by stakes winners. That would be 329. By graded stakes winners, 106. Grade 1 winners, 33, as well as graded stakes horses and grade 1 stakes horses. He's also number one in progeny earnings. That currently stands at over $217 million and counting. And Tappet was America's leading broodmare sire in 2023, 2024, and again currently in 2025. The home of Tappet, Gainesway, power, passion, performance.
Last week was Royal Ascot, and Zoe Cadman is obviously our European expert with her roots in England. But we were avoiding the bear? What the heck does that mean, Zoe?
Well, obviously, I'm in lovely England right now. And, Doodle made NBC Nightly News. Did you see Doodle on the news? Did either one of you?
No.
So,
I wish I would have known he was going to be on.
Yeah, he was NBC Nightly News. And he made it on the TV over here in England. So I was sleeping quite peacefully in my bedroom, in my house with no doors on it. There was a front door, but the bear got through the screen door. It was hot. I guess I was hoping for a man and not a bear in my kitchen. So the bear came through, ate all the cat food, had a good sniff around. And the only thing that woke me up was the bear opening the fridge doors and the light coming on. So I woke up and my bed is like 10 feet away from my kitchen. So I woke up and I'm like, oh, what's that? I'm like, is that a man in my kitchen? I was like, oh, no. And then I'm like, oh, shit, it's a bear. So I'm like, oh, what do I do? Do I take a picture? So I'm like, no, don't be stupid. So I jump out of bed. Meanwhile, I'm obviously naked in bed because that's just me. So I jump out of bed, run out the front door, run around to the other side of the house to make sure the other door's open so I can get the bear out, run back around. The bear's ambled its way out of the kitchen. Meanwhile, Doodle has started barking at it because he woke up. He's barking and wagging his tail. I slip in bear pee because the bear peed all over the kitchen. So Doodle's barking at the bear, and everyone thinks I have a parrot now because I'm yelling at the bear, and I guess I sound like a parrot when I'm trying to roar. Why I was roaring, I don't know. I just woke up and was like, rah, rah. Anyway, so I got the bear out of the house finally. But she's obviously a repeat offender because she's tagged and she's wearing a GPS collar. And apparently she broke into my neighbors and ate their ice cream. But Doodle survived. He did survive. I'll send you the clip.
Congratulations to Doodle. And yeah, I did see that clip. I didn't realize that it was played on the national news. That was quite entertaining. And that
was my dad walking behind me, just in case you wonder who that old man is back there. It's my dad.
Okay. Well, Zoe, let's get back to horse racing if we can. I don't know if I want to go on. That was such a good story. You're our European expert. What were the big stories at Royal Ascot? What do you remember most? Give us a wrap on the Royal Ascot meet.
It was terrific. One, it was a heat wave, so maybe a little too warm for some of my fellow Americans that went over there. And of course, the Brits were just pink, purple, bloated, and just very, very hot because it was unusually hot, which it's not now. We witnessed Charlie Appleby, who hasn't won a race there in the last 3 years, win with, who did he win with? Rebels Romance.
Rebels Romance, yeah.
How about Rebels Romance? He is now 18 for 26. He's 7 years old. He's been running since he was a 2-year-old. And he quite most definitely is Charlie Appleby's favorite horse. Everybody loves him. He always shows up. He's like the Black Stallion. That was the highlight for me. A lot of people said Trawler Man winning the Gold Cup for Godolphin as well. Who did they pick up leading owner, Randy? I think they did.
Leading owner was Coolmore.
Oh, Coolmore. They were one behind Coolmore. So Coolmore got leading owner. Coolmore won 5 of the 6 2-year-old races. You think Gustave, Charles Darwin, the filly, what's her name? With Love or Love. She's just as good as the boys. They won 5 of the 6 2-year-old races. And Albert Einstein wasn't even there. That's his best 2-year-old by far. He didn't even run at Royal Ascot. So Aidan O'Brien just cleared up in all the 2-year-old races. Who else was there? Ryan Moore picked up the Jockeys Championship, even cracked a smile a few times, I might add. He was quite chipper and quite cherry. John and Thady Gosden, them picking up another win at Royal Ascot as well. So all in all, sunshine, good weather, firm, fast ground, and great racing. It was a terrific 5 days of racing. If you've never been, you've been, right, Randy?
No.
You've been to Cheltenham, which is a bit cold and dreary. You've got to get to Ascot.
Yeah. The most interesting parts about the 5 days to me, Field of Gold, I thought the Juddmonte horse trained by the Gosdens, the 3-year-old, had the best performance of Royal Ascot. He loves firm turf, and it was obviously very firm with the heat wave over there. And he also loves races that are strongly paced. So just on that, you would think that maybe the Breeders' Cup might be a possibility for him. But John Gosden's already talked about how much racing he has already had. So it wouldn't surprise me. And Juddmonte is usually pretty keen about keeping their 3-year-olds in training for their 4-year-old season. So we may not see Field of Gold this year, but it would be nice if we did. With the firm turf over there, as Americans look ahead when we get to Breeders' Cup time, I think Royal Ascot is going to be a pretty good barometer for success in the United States because the turf was so firm. Rebels Romance will, if he stays sound, he'll be going to become the first 3-time Breeders' Cup turf winner, 22 Keeneland, 24 at Del Mar. And the way he's running right now, he would have to be a pretty heavy favorite as we speak. And the other note that I thought was kind of interesting on a couple of different fronts, Coolmore won 5 races. So did Wathnan Racing. Saudi Arabia with Juddmonte, Ireland with Coolmore, Dubai with Godolphin have sort of ruled the world in international racing. But Cotter is really making a push, and Sheikh Tamim Al Thani of the royal family is the emir of Cotter. He's the he's the money behind Wathan Racing. And what's interesting is that Wathan has now won 11 times at Royal Ascot. They only started racing at Royal Ascot in 2023. Wathan has already won 11 times, and 5 this year. But during the week that Sheikh Tamim won the 5 races at Royal Ascot, he was also quite busy behind the scenes, helping Donald Trump negotiate a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, and trying to navigate that whole minefield in the Middle East. So a lot of different hats being worn by Sheikh Tamim, and he probably didn't even notice all the wins that he had at Royal Ascot.
So the major race over the weekend in the U.S., it was kind of a quiet weekend, but we had talked on the podcast last week about the Ohio Derby. And I don't know how much we found out. It was a race that didn't really attract any of the big stars like it did when it got 2 Phils, Randy Moss's favorite horse, to make his final career appearance in it. So what did we find out? We found out that Moplex, who's a real nice New York bred, can go long. In his first ever start around 2 turns, and after running in the 7 furlong Bayshore, he won the race for trainer Jeremiah Englehart. So congratulations to them. And we learned something more about Clever Again, the horse that was back in that mess in the Preakness involving Flavian Pratt and Umberto Rispoli. And I think all 3 of us had said that keep in mind that when he got in all that trouble, he was already backing up. And he was not going to be anywhere near the top 1, 2 in there. I took that to heart. I threw him away, and he didn't get in any trouble. But he again ran like a horse that just this was not right up his alley. Right now, he's got that one huge race in the Hot Springs with a 101 buyer. But since then, he's certainly not come anywhere close to duplicating that.
Yeah, and I think the public sort of caught on to that as well. I thought he'd be the favorite, but when they went to post, Chunk of Gold was actually 6-5, and Clever Again was 9-5. Chunk of Gold ran his typical solid race, coming off a 9th place finish in the Kentucky Derby on a sea of slop, but he was just plugging away throughout the entire race. But how about Moplex? They had to call an audible. They were going to run him in a New York bred race, and that didn't pan out. So Jeremiah Englehart rerouted Moplex to the Ohio Derby, and lo and behold, he's now a graded stakes winner.
How about the handle? Up 44% from last year. Now, it was the only graded stake in the country that day at that time. So I believe that had an awful lot to do with it. Congrats to Pat Mackey, the racing secretary there at Thistledown, for organizing certain pick 5s and, exotic wagers to kind of boost the handle, but up 44% from last year. I'm not sure about Moplex, how good he is going forward, but he certainly was the best of the rest in the Ohio Derby.
Well, I wonder if they have access to our podcast in the Denver Contract Detention Facility. I doubt they do, but if they do, hi, Jorge. How you doing, pal? This is where Jorge Navarro has landed. He was let out of jail last week, served 3 years and 3 months of a 5-year sentence. But as his lawyer had mentioned at the time before he was even pled guilty, that because he's not a United States citizen, he was going to likely be deported. And that was when Biden was president, not Donald, I'm going to kick everybody the hell out of the country, Trump. So sure enough, he goes, and the only way you can follow this on the internet, I haven't been able to, the lawyer hasn't called me back, and I'm just going on various websites, but they must have been waiting for him right outside the jail he was in Florida, because the next day he was listed in a ICE prison in Florida. Now, I don't know if they let him go home for an hour or two, or if they were literally right at the prison doors, slapped a new pair of handcuffs on him, and took him away. He has since been sent to this place in Denver. I have no idea why, but I got to think the next couple of years of Jorge Navarro's life might even be worse than the 3 years he spent in prison. He's a winner if he gets deported to Panama. He'll be all right if he does that. But the Trump administration has not been afraid to send criminals, which he is, to some hellish places like El Salvador. Look, I'm not going to root against a guy or gloat. We know what he did. We know what he did, and what he meant, the harm he caused horse racing. But I'm glad to see. I don't think he's going to step foot on U.S. soil again the rest of his life, and good riddance.
He may wind up wishing that he was still in federal custody in the United States when all this is said and done. Congratulations on getting out early. Oh, by the way, here's your ticket to El Salvador.
Here's your ticket to hell. Bye-bye. See you now.
The TDN Writers Room brought to you by the Pennsylvania Horse Breeders Association, the PHBA. Pennsylvania's inaugural yearling show was conducted this past weekend. The grand champion, a filly by Mackenzie out of Emerald Bracelet, bred and owned by Tom Coulter's Arrowwood Farm. The reserve champion was a colt named Sir Patrick by Pat on the Back and out of Friday Mass. Sir Patrick, bred and owned by E. Marie Morrison. And now, finally, after 2 weather postponements, the Penn Mile Day is back upon us again, scheduled for this Friday night, June 27th. 4 turf stakes carded. Let's cross our fingers that the weather cooperates. Those 4 races, the $400,000 Grade 3 Penn Mile, the $150,000 Penn Oaks, and then those 2 Pennsylvania bred stakes we've talked about, both $75,000, the Alphabet Soup and the Leafard for fillies and mares, both with full fields. For more information on that Pennsylvania breeding program, go to pabred.com or call 610-444-1050.
PA Bred, I think we've built a brand at this point.
It's excitement at every step.
Roses for Deborah just set a new track record.
On average, for the past decade, Pennsylvania paid over $28 million a year in Breeders' Awards, restricted races, and owner bonuses. Plus, PA Bred shine on the world's biggest stage. Just 3 states have bred more Breeders' Cup winners. Learn more at pabred.com.
With some of the fullest fields in the country and quality racing year-round, there's never been a better time to reap the rewards of breeding and racing in Kentucky. Purse money in Kentucky is at an all-time high, as is average purse per race, outpacing California, Florida, and New York. Kentucky Breds. Breed them, raise them, race them. We all win.
We've talked a lot about Kentucky Breds and all the places they win. They also win at Royal Ascot, which we've seen in the past and we saw again in 2025. Kentucky bred Crimson Advocate displayed a tremendous turn of foot, winning the Group 2 Duke of Cambridge Stakes over a really good field, as always, at Royal Ascot. This was on last Wednesday, June the 18th. It was the second Royal Ascot win for Crimson Advocate because, remember, she also won the Group 2 Queen Mary Stakes back in 2023. Crimson Advocate owned by the emerging Wathnan Racing, bred in Kentucky by Whitehall Lane Farm. Kentucky Breds. Buy them, raise them, race them. We all win.
Well, there's some huge races this weekend at Churchill Downs. It's one of their big days of the year. I believe it's closing weekend before they go off to Ellis Park. And I got to tell you, the Stephen Foster, this is becoming one of the best older horse races on the calendar. And man, did this come up tough this year. A field of 7, 5 of them are Grade 1 winners. And one of the ones that is not, ironically, is trained by Wayne Lukas. He was obviously still the trainer of Ashcroft when they made the entry. Ashcroft, I don't think, has much of a chance in here. But 5 out of 7 Grade 1 winners. Who do you like? First Mission, Mindframe, Sierra Leone. I mean, these are the stars of the sport. Mystik Dan, Hit Show. I'm going to go with First Mission for Brad Cox. He ran that huge 109 buyer and the Oaklawn Handicap with Pratt aboard. Luis Saez now takes over. Flavian Pratt sticks with Sierra Leone for Chad Brown. I don't read anything into that other than he's become Chad Brown's main guy. So he's not going to get off a horse he won the Breeders' Cup Classic on, no matter what. So Luis Saez will ride First Mission. I think this horse is in his third start off the layoff from last year, is ready to throw in a big one. But boy, other than Ashcroft and perhaps Skippy Longstocking, usually doesn't come through quite at this level. I think any one of these guys could win it.
Yeah, most definitely. And to quote Wayne Lukas, he's made a very good living running horses in the wrong spots. I think that was one of his great quotes many, many moons ago. So perhaps divine intervention here with Ashcroft coming in for the coach owned by Deborah Barkley. It's a very good race with lots of horses that have run similar numbers, but just need to step up at the right time. Mystik Down was great in the Blame Stakes last time out. I thought he looked terrific. He cut the corner. He did what he always did. He's 3 for 4 at Churchill Downs. You've got to respect Sierra Leone, who didn't get the pace he needs to run at the fairgrounds, just kind of ran evenly, and he's going to appreciate the stretch out. We going a mile and oh no, we're still going a mile and 8. Sorry. He'll stay at a mile and 8. I actually like Sierra Leone. I don't think Pratt's going to let him fall so far behind, and he's going to be pretty sharp on him. So I'll stick with him, but I certainly could not throw the Derby winner out, Mystik Down.
Unbelievable race. The best race for older horses so far this year. And it's probably going to be the best race for older horses until you get to the Breeders' Cup Classic. I mean, You've got Hit Show, who's coming off a win in the Dubai World Cup. Mystik Dan, the winner of last year's Derby. Sierra Leone, last year's Breeders' Cup Classic. Skippy Longstockings made $3.6 million. Mindframe second in the Belmont, and Haskell last year's won 2 in a row. And oh, by the way, First Mission just comes off a 109 Buyer speed figure winning at Oakland. That is a murderer's row. Then there's Ashcroft. That's a murderer's row right there. I'll take Sierra Leone. I can't really trust, and maybe it's not fair, First Mission to come back with another effort like he did in the Oakland Handicap. Mystik, I don't think that if they both give their A performance, that Mystik Dan is quite as good as Sierra Leone. Maybe at a mile and an 1/8 he would be, even though he beat him in the Kentucky Derby. So yeah, pace, not a ton of pace in here, but I think there's enough between Mindframe and Skippy Longstocking to be an honest pace. First Mission probably won't be that far back either. So Sierra Leone will have a little more to run at maybe than he did last time out. That was his first start of the year since the Breeders' Cup. So I'll come back with Sierra Leone, but what a race. What a race that is.
Just want to make one quick correction. There are only 4 Grade 1 winners in the race. I said there were 5, but as I've taken a second look at the racing form, there's only 4. But my goodness, 4 Grade 1 winners coming together in a race that's not the Breeders' Cup is really something that you don't see anymore these days. All right, so the Fleur de Lis is the return race of Thorpedo Anna. We've talked earlier on the show to trainer Ken McPeek, and we got his take on how she's doing coming into this big weekend of racing. I'm going to try to beat her in here. She got bumped around on the first turn in the La Troyenne, but I don't think that was the reason why she ran so poorly. It might have cost her a length or two. And she was 7 beaten 8.5 lengths. And Randy or Zoe, you want to comment on this? Sometimes you look at the figures, not just to see how fast they are, but more the sheep mentality of what direction they're going in. So she ran 100 in the Breeders' Cup distaff, and her 3 races since then, she hasn't topped a 95. So it looks to me like as a 4-year-old, I mean, this sounds crazy. She won the Apple Blossom in Grade 1, but it looks to me that she's not quite as fast unless Kenny McPeek's got another notch to throw down and get this horse to another level. I think she's beatable. I'm going to pick Royal Spa.
Oof. I'm just going to throw this out here and say that we're actually recording this before we spoke to Kenny McPeek. So Kenny said after the last race, he couldn't find anything wrong with her. And I'm sure there's nothing wrong with her because he would not be running her if there was. So if she's as good as he thinks she is, I have to stick with Thorpedo Anna. If it's not Thorpedo Anna, Taxed is a rapidly improving 5-year-old mare who's been below the rest of these, and she likes Churchill Downs. She could clunk in for a piece of it. And Gin for Brendan Walsh. She's an up-and-coming 4-year-old by Hightail out of a hard-spun mare. You'd never think she'd want the distance, being by the Wayne Lukas juvenile sprint winner in Hightails. So she's definitely worth some consideration. But I'm going to stick with Thorpedo Anna.
All right. I'll go along with Bill on this one. Royal Spa is steadily improving. She won a race of stakes, only a grade 3, but she won a stakes at Churchill in her last start with a 3-wide trip on both turns. Obviously, if we see the same Thorpedo Anna, if she's back to the level that she was last year in the Breeders' Cup, or maybe even in the Apple Blossom in the Azeri, I think she'll probably win. But you don't like the fact that there was no real excuse for her in the running or physical excuse afterward for her no-show performance in the La Troyenne. I mean, to me, as a bettor, that's a red flag. And as a heavy favorite, I don't think you want to take a filly, even a filly as good as Thorpedo Anna, when they're coming off an effort like that can't be explained away. So just because of that, and because I think Royal Spa is on the upswing and will get a ground-saving trip, I'll take Royal Spa to win it. But if Royal Spa runs her best race and Thorpedo Anna runs her best race, I think Bill would agree that it would be no comparison, but you can't count on that.
The TDN Writers Room is also brought to you by First TV. Bob Baffert's Speedy Nisos worked 5 furlongs in 1 minute and 4/5 on Saturday at Santa Anita. Nisos won the Grade 3 Triple Bend in his last start on May 31st, and this was his first move since that win. His record now is 4 wins in 5 starts with 1 second. That came in the Grade 1 Churchill Downs Stakes on Derby Day. Nisos is now pointing to the San Diego at Del Mar on July the 26th. Looks good, doesn't he, guys?
Be a smarter bettor with First TV, the best horses, with thousands of exclusive morning workouts, all at your fingertips and delivered right into your inbox. Everything you need to be informed. Be smart. Bet smart. With First TV. All the thrills. Fraction of the bills. Experience the power of the partnership. Change your life, make new friends, and compete at the highest level of thoroughbred racing. West Point Thoroughbreds, the gold standard in racing partnerships. Visit westpointtb.com.
TDN Writers Room also brought to you by our good friends at West Point Thoroughbreds. Let's see, Zoe talked about Vava. I talked about Vava, the fastest horse of the week. We can't get enough Vava. West Point Thoroughbreds is also the co-owner of Vava, a grateful co-owner of Vava. The comeback trail's been potent for West Point lately, with Vava scoring her first win of the year on the heels of a successful return from Cugino. He won a high-class allowance at Aqueduct last Thursday, as well as Pony Express and Final Boss re-emerging during the month of June with promising wins at Santa Anita. We will keep you up to date on all things West Point. But in the meantime, for more information, you can visit www.westpointtb.com.
That's a wrap on this week's show. I want to thank my partners, Randy Moss and Zoe Cadman. Also, our Gainesway guest of the week, Mr. Kenny McPeek, and the people who work behind the scenes, our producers and directors, Katie Petruniak, Sue Finley, Anthony, and Leah LaRocca. Hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. We'll talk to you next week.